It is a beautiful Sunday night. Welcome to our interactive segment where today we will be featuring Mr. Jack Oguda, who is the CEO of the Tusker Premier League. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Jack Oguda, let's start by summarize to us the league briefly.
I think the 2012 season has been a wonderful season. We've had very few incidences of crowd trouble. In fact, the first one was in March, and then the last one was at the end of the league when the title was being contended. So that means our appeals committee has had very few cases of disciplinary cases. This year we've seen 3 teams competing at the last day for the title, as opposed to last year where we only had 2 teams. We've seen the first leg coaches coming in and revamping the sides. You saw the performance of Gor Mahia and Mathare. At the first leg, end of first leg, they were lounging at the bottom of the season. So the injection of new coaches really showed that there's a lot that can be done in Kenyan football. We also signed the title sponsorship from July with the Tusker, and hence the league being referred to as the Tusker Premier League. We also signed a deal with Puma, and Puma is now the official match ball supplier for the league. And also, in all our live matches, we use the Puma balls, and the clubs also use them in their training sessions. So I think we are also growing. The funds have increased in our stadia. Clubs are getting more in terms of gate collection, and we hope that it will keep on growing in tenfold as it has been.
All right. As opposed to 2011, we saw 2012, the league was so smooth as you were able to harmonize the national team's calendar and the league's calendar. What can we expect in 2013?
Since we've been working very well with the federation since they were installed last October, and we also set up a joint liaison group so that we can harmonize everything, what the league is doing and what the federation is doing. So initially, towards the end of last year, we had a meeting with the then national team head coach, Francis Kimanzi, and we gave him the league fixtures so that he could give us his plan for 2012. And that's the same plan that we've used for the entire season. We also incorporated the FKF Cup to try and harmonize it. And you realize this year, at some point, the FKF Cup was about to disrupt the league, but we had to sit down with the FA, and they had to put the FKF Cup towards the end of the season so that it doesn't interrupt the league. All
right. Talking of wrangles and also crowd trouble, it's not once or twice we've seen this happen, and they cause fracas out there, the fans. What have you been doing in all these cases, and is IDAC still operational?
In terms of crowd trouble, we've tried to reduce. As I mentioned earlier, we had an incident in March the 18th between Gor Mahia and AFC, and IDAC made a decision that Gor Mahia will not play the 3 next home matches with no fans. They appealed to the federation, and the federation allowed them that the matter will be discussed at the appellate body, and unfortunately the season ended without that matter being discussed. And in March, we insisted that Gor had to give us a security plan until the end of the season, which they did, and it worked well, and they managed to control their funds. The only incident that happened was in the last match against C.E.O United at City Stadium, and that matter is still going to be heard by IDCC, our disciplinary committee, and probably in the next 2 weeks, because it just can't be water under the bridge. So we will get a decision from that.
I personally like the spirit in the stadium when maybe Gor Mahia and AFC are playing, but at some point you find other teams who have no fans. You can actually hear what the players are discussing on the pitch because there are no fans. What are you doing to ensure that maybe fans can come back to the stadium?
I will agree and disagree with you. I think the main reason of other teams not having fans, you realize basically you go to many matches in Nairobi as opposed to matches outside Nairobi. But Nairobi has very many teams. We have half of the teams come from Nairobi. And when you have a weekend where you have like four teams in Nairobi playing the same weekend, definitely you'll have very few fans at other venues. But that's why we decided to spread out the matches and play them midweek, to try and get more Nairobi teams playing midweek, so that you have less of them playing over the weekend. But this year, I think the fan attendance has increased. And it also begs upon to the clubs to try and also increase their fan base. It's not just the league that is supposed to do that. The clubs need to engage their fans and try and grow their fan base year in, year out, more than what Gor Mahia and AFC have done. Maybe they should borrow a leaf from Gor and AFC. Yeah.
And also, we have, as you said, very few clubs which are community-based. But what are we going to do to ensure that? Because if I can give an example of other leagues in the world, the fans own the clubs, but the sponsors just maybe support the team. Do you think this is one of the reasons as to why Kenya, we don't have so many fans?
Okay, it is not necessarily the fans owning the club. Every league has its own diverse way of operating. Like, let's say the Bundesliga. The clubs come from the various regions within Germany. So you find that people are so attached to the club right from the age when they're born. And it depends on whether the father is supporting that club. So it starts deep down from a tender age. And if you go to Sony Awendo, for example, those fans there, Sony being a company team, but the fans in Awendo are so attached to Sony, and that's why you find Sony matches are full with their fans. Nairobi, you might find a team like KCB and Tusker. Being a capital city, people would tend to be more inclined to either Gor Mahia or AFC, but they still would be supporting KCB. So Nairobi has fans who might be supporting like two or three teams in the league. Yeah, so it's something that we also need to look at, and clubs also need to try and see how they can increase their fan base, basically.
In terms of a transfer, how do you regulate? Because we see currently there are teams that are already out there looking for foreigners. How does Tusker Premier League regulate how we import players?
The rules that we use right now is a team can only register a maximum of 5 foreign players. And they are only allowed to field 3 foreign players at any given match. So definitely our local players still have a larger quota in terms of being fielded in any match. Yeah.
Then I understand that if we want soccer to grow in this country, we need to have maybe structures. And in 2011, I believe, we had the under-19. What happened? Was it just a try and error?
It was not a trial and error. In fact, we crafted it in a way that the top 8 was going to be the main fundraiser for the under-19. Apparently, this year we didn't get enough funding to hold it. So we've set up a committee, a youth development committee, that will look into it, so that in 2013 we will have it either during the Easter holidays or during the school holidays. But we're now taking it very seriously, because without the youth, then football will not grow. And we would like to even take it further to under-17 and then under-14 in the near future. Probably also try and get a partner who would come in and buy the rights for the under-19. Basically, the under-19 should be the reserve league for the Premier League teams. Yeah.
In Kenya, many people say that we have a lot of talent in terms of soccer, but we find that the players are exposed when maybe they are old enough as compared to other countries that have developed in terms of soccer. What do you think should be done other than maybe bringing up structures? What should Kenya do to ensure that our talent is exposed early enough now that you also have super sport?
I think there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. Youth development has to be way from the grassroots. Has to be way from the grassroots. And this is an onus that the federation should definitely look into it very seriously. We need to start looking for talent right from the age of 8. 8 years. And if we have the structures within the federation right, we have government support and corporate support, then definitely we would be able to see our young talent at a very tender age. So, and that's why, as a league, we decided to start with the under-19, which is a reverse order. We should start with under-8 coming up, but for us, the under-19 would be much closer because those players would be able to feature in the Premier League in the next 2 or 3 years. We worked with Orange last year during the under-13 youth tournament. That space has not been occupied by somebody else at the moment. This year, FKF has worked with Coca-Cola doing the under-17, which we previously were doing. So those are the kind of structures that we need to put in place so that our players are identified at a young age, and you can see their progression towards the top leagues. Yeah.
Lastly, I would want to ask about the women football. Has TPL ever thought of maybe starting a women's league and going?
As a Tusker Premier League, we've advised the federation on how to professionalize women's football. And 2 years ago, I was in a lot of discussions with them and with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and they tried to set up a company to do women's football. But at that time, there was a lot of infighting between FKF and KFF then, and it never took off because we wanted the women's football to take the kind of approach that KPL did. Happily, since FKF came into office last October, they've run a very good women's football. That is a starting point. You saw the under-20 women's team was just about to go to the World Cup, and which means our women might go to the World Cup before our men do. So that is an area that we need to focus and try and also get more partners in to propel women's soccer.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have you today. That has been our interactive segment. Thank you so much for staying tuned. My name is Florence Ndongo. See you next Sunday.